Donna from Donna's Dreamworks. I'm going to do a little show and tell here today about making some of the bindings that we use in making mini albums. Probably most of us use one of two bindings, either the Stack the Deck binding by Laura Dennison or the Hidden Hinge system by Kathy Order King. Now, the hidden hinge system is, I think, easier to figure out, regardless of how big you want your gusset, that's the space between the hinges, or how many pages you want to have. But let's say you want to use the Stack the Deck binding. I'm going to show you a way to figure out how big to make each piece if you don't have the exact measurements of each piece. If you're making it the same exactly as someone who you've been watching on YouTube, it's not difficult. But let's say you wanted a different spacing between your hinges. The most common spacings are 3/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, 3/8 of an inch, and 1/2 an inch, depending on how many embellishments you're planning to use. So I'm going to do the 1/2 an inch. You could probably figure out pretty easily. I'm going to do the 3/8 of an inch because it's a little more difficult to figure out. So I'm going to take my piece of paper, and I have determined that my book is going to be 4.5 inches tall, so my binding is going to be 4 inches tall. And I just cut this piece of paper. I'm going to leave it at 11 inches till I know what I need to have. And I'm going to count in 3/8 of an inch on my scoreboard. 1, 2, 3. That's 3 tick marks on this particular scoreboard. No, I'm sorry. I'm going to count in a 1/2 an inch because my hinge itself is going to be a 1/2 inch. Okay, so I'm going to go up to the 1/2 inch mark and score it. Now I'm going to count 3/8 of an inch because that's how much I want between my pages. So I will count 1, 2, 3. Okay, now I need my second hinge, which is another 1/2 inch. And a 1/2 inch would be 4 tick marks. So I'll count 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now I'm going to bring in my cutter. And I'm going to take this last line that I made and line it up on the cutter. And cut it off. Okay, so now I will fold these on the score lines. And you can see that I have one hinge, 1 3/8 of an inch gusset, and one hinge. Now I'm going to make the next 2 hinges, but how big do I make the next page? Well, you all know that with the Stack the Deck, you stack one on top of the other, gluing just the middle section down. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Here's my hinge, here's my gusset. I'm going to just put ATG on it for the sake of the video, but you obviously would be using a stronger adhesive. Okay, so I'm just going to give myself a little room over here on the left, and I'm going to tape it to my piece of paper. Okay, so now I have my hinge, my gusset, and my hinge. So now this is my last hinge, right? So I'm going to line this up by any number I want up here. It's easier if you put it at a whole number, so I'll just put it to 3. Now remember, my gusset was 3/8 of an inch, so I'm going to count back 3. 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to score. Then I want my new hinge, and so hinge is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's my 1/2 inch hinge. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is the same thing on the other side. Push them all over here, get to the very end, and I'll line it up. And I'll do 1, 2, 3 for the 3/8 of an inch gusset. And then I will do 4 for the 1/2 inch hinge. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing I did for the cutting. My last line, I'm going to line up on my cutter. And the last line over here, I'll turn it around, it's easier. The last line over here, I'm going to line up on the cutter. Okay. Now I will fold these up. Okay, and I'm not burnishing them as much as you would, obviously. But we need to get them up. Okay, so now I have 4 pages. I have a 1/2 inch hinge, 3/8, 1/2 inch, 3/8, 1/2 inch, 3/8, and 1/2 inch. So I have my 4 pages. Okay, and you can see now that the back is considerably wider. What I'm going to do with this now is the same thing, not on your hinge section, but in the middle. I'm going to add some tape. And I'm going to add it to a piece of paper, leaving me a little space over here, and keeping it as straight as possible. Okay? And I'm going to pull them all over to the side, line this up with a number, count back 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 for a 3/8 inch gusset. And 1, 2, 3, 4 for a 1/2 inch hinge. And I'm going to go to the other side, push them all over here. Sorry, I tend to get out of frame. And I'm going to line this up. I'm going to go 3/8 of an inch. 1, 2, 3. And 4 inch, 4 for a 1/2 inch hinge. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Bring in my cutter. And pull them all over, and the very last line that I have over here, I'm going to line up with my cutter, cut it off. And I'll turn it around, and the very last line I have over here, I'm going to line up with my cutter and cut it off. And I didn't get a good cut there, but anyway. Okay, so now we have, as I fold this up, and I fold this up, my 6 pages for my album, all with a 3/8 inch gusset in between. 1 3/8, 2 3/8, 3 3/8, 4 3/8, 5 3/8, and 6. So this is basically the stack the deck. As you saw, we stacked each piece on top of the other, but I didn't have to figure out how big I had to make each piece to start with. Now I would take this piece and measure the very back of it. And in this case, it measures 2 7/8. No, I'm sorry, 1 7/8. Okay? So it's 1 7/8. So that way you can figure out how big you need to make your binding on your book. 1 7/8, I probably would make mine about 2 1/4 or 2 1/8, just to give me a little bit of space. I like a little bit of space between it. I don't like wings necessarily, but a little space between the binding and where the book is going to bend. Okay. So there you go. And it wouldn't make any difference how big. If you want to make it 2/8, which is 1/4, you just would count 2 spaces. And you can always get your stack the deck binding stacked up nicely. Okay, now the other binding, as I mentioned, was the hidden hinge binding, which of course, and I'm just going to see if I've got 4 1/2 here, 4 1/4. Yep. Okay, so in this 4 1/4 inch piece, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to make it all in one piece. And I don't know how much paper I'm going to need. I'm going to make 6 pages, so I'm going to leave it just as it is. I'm going to start with about 3/4 of an inch, just to leave me a little space. Now, I want a 3/8 inch gusset, so I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, and then 1/2 inch. 1, 2, 3, 4, and another 1/2 inch. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3. Whoops, didn't stay in the line very well that time. 1, 2, 3, 4 for a 1/2 inch. I'm at the 3, 3 1/2, and now I'll have a 3-inch gusset, a 3/8 inch gusset. 1, 2, 3, a 1/2 inch. 1, 2, 3, 4. Each hinge has 2 1/2 inch sections. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3 for my 3/8. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. How many pages do I have? I have 1, 2. I'm sorry, I can't see in this light. 1, 2, 3, 4 pages. Okay, so I need 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Last page. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1, 2, 3. Leave 3 on the end, and we'll just leave that piece there for now. Okay, and then I'm sure you all are familiar with how this is folded. This is the first 1/2 inch section. I'm just going to fold it in half. This is the second 1/2 inch section, the third 1/2 inch section, the fourth 1/2 inch section, the fifth, and the sixth. Okay, so what we do is we're going to glue these together, these 1/2 inch sections. I'm going to use some score tape. And I'm going to bend it back, okay? And then I'll do the next one. Put the 1/2 inches together and bend it back. And I'll do the next one. Put the 1/2 inches together and bend it back. And I'll do the next one. And of course, if you had been burnishing these as you folded them, they would fold a lot smoother and not keep popping up on you like mine are. Okay? And then the next one, 1/2 inch, bend it over, bend it back. And the last one, 1/2 inch, bend it over and bend it back. And now I'm going to just go the other way with these to bend it on the other score line. Okay, so now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages, and they have the 3/8 in between them. And this is, I like to leave this little 3/8, so this piece I'm just going to fold under, okay, and this piece I'm going to fold under. Remember, we left a little piece at the end, so it will eventually look like this. You've got your 6 pages, and you've got your hinge here. What I do is, this will have tape on it in the back. I think I can do it. I haven't, without burnishing it, it gets a little stiff to do it, but I think I can do it. And I will just fold that back, and remember to leave your little 1/4 inch. And I'll do the same with the other one. And making sure to leave my little 1/4 inch, I'll just fold it back. So there you go. And then, of course, you would go back and forth a dozen times until you've got them nice and pliable. And there's your 6 hinges. And then you're going to be putting tape all over the back of this, and that's what's going to sit on your binding. Now in this case, I'm going to measure this now and find out. There's my 6 pages. This binding is 2 and I would say 3/4. So I'm going to make my book about 3 to 3 1/4, my cover piece. Okay, so there are the 2, the Stack the Deck and the Hidden Hinge. My preference is the Hidden Hinge, and I'll tell you why. Because first I find it easier. Secondly, you've got a double piece of paper here for your hinge, and for some reason that makes me feel like the hinge is a little bit more secure. It may not be, but it feels that way to me. And I can make this hinge for 1 page, 6 pages, 5 pages, 7 pages, 9 pages, whatever, how many pages I want. As long as I keep making my gusset followed by my 2 1/2-inch sections, that's it. This page is basically an even number of pages because you keep adding a piece on each side. So you're going to have 2, 4, 6, or 8 pages. And if I didn't want 6 and I only wanted 5, I suppose I could trim this off, but then it's defeating the purpose. I will say I think this binding will lay flatter because it is only 1 sheet of paper than this. This is a lot stiffer and will not lay. If you see, I've only burnished it with my hand, and you can see how much flatter this is laying here than this one. So either binding works very well. I have fun working with them, but make your bindings first and figure out how big to make your cover piece so that it fits. And as you notice, I don't have wings on my binding. I prefer not to have wings on my binding. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.